Somewhere there's some reading into the ordinance, and I don't see anywhere in the ordinance, and I'm going to read it real quickly, to appoint, promote, demote, remove any officers and employees of the city except the city clerk, city treasurer, and city attorney. And this is the part that's in question. Provided, however, that any appointment, only an appointment of a department head, including the chief of police or other public safety director, shall be subject to concurrence by a formal vote of the city council. Now, nobody's saying that they answer to us, and it's clearly in the rest of the statutes and the policy who all employees answer to. What they're saying is that any appointment of the police chief will be in concurrence with the majority of the council. Now, I wasn't going to do this, but let me explain to you that are here and to the public or at home why this is here. Now, this subject matter came about because I was in a meeting with Doug, and in that meeting we were discussing the process and the hiring of the police chief. And I wasn't happy with what was going on with the hiring, or not the hiring, I was not happy with the process. I was not happy because it was not what I considered ethical. So, and what I mean by was it ethical, it may be legal, but it wasn't ethical. So let me back up a bit. We flew the position for the chief of police, and it cut off the first round on May the 15th, 2018. Whoever application was in at that point in time, we'll consider was in group 1. Now, Rochelle at the time was doing the recruitment, and she went ahead and scheduled those individuals that were cut off at May 15th for an interview, a chief's interview, on August the 15th. On August the 15th, the board convened, and it consisted of Sean Thalise, the chief of police of Beaumont, Tim Chavez, CAL FIRE Battalion chief, and the chief of the Barongo Patrol, Gill, Chief Gill, Radam Gill. So they met, and they interviewed all 7 and came out with 3 finalists. And the 3 finalists were an Anaheim PD officer, captain, an Anaheim PD captain, a Hawthorne PD lieutenant, and a sheriff from Walla Walla, Washington, which was fine. That was the 3 finalists. And at that time, Rochelle stopped the process, and these 3 went on hold pending the arrival of Doug Schultz. Doug's contract began on October 1st, and he assumed the chair on August the 8th. When on August the 8th, or sometime between the 8th and whenever, I'm not really certain of the date, he had a conversation with HR and found out that his former chief of Bainbridge Island application was not on file in our HR. So he contacted the Bainbridge chief and said, you need to get your application in if you're going to be considered. So a rush was done, and the Bainbridge chief's application suddenly appeared, in which he should have been in then group 2 or 3, but nevertheless, he bypassed all of that, and Doug, by his own admission, says, I looked at the scores of the 3 applicants that was given to me as finalists, and I looked at who was on the bottom, which was the Anaheim PD, and I cut them and DQ'd them, and I inserted the Bainbridge policeman in, or the Bainbridge police chief into the slot. And I said, well, how can you do that, Doug? He didn't go through the initial process, and he wasn't ranked with the others according to the chief's interview. How is it that we're skipping that interview and we're bringing him forward and inserting him there? And I said, that's unethical. You can't do that. And he said, well, that's what I'm going to do. And I said, even after I'm telling you we shouldn't be doing this, you're going to do it. And he says, yes, I'm going to do it. And his comment was, the good will outweigh the bad. So he will do more good by coming here than I'm doing bad by violating the policy. So I said, well, the one nice thing is that the council does have a veto power for these instances. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I explained to him this ordinance. So he looked and he says, you can't do that under a city manager council government. That's not part of it. And that we can't do that. And I said, we changed the ordinance in 2014 because of things just like this. Just like this, and you recall, Art, you were on the council when we changed the policy and you voted yes for it. So here we are today with a process of 3 police chiefs that were the finalists that was escorted around town with bands and whistles and meet and greets, who the public paid for round-trip airfare for them and their spouses in hotels and cars and plane fare at public expense, and we're going to entertain hiring possibly someone who was inserted into the system and was faulted. Now, the city manager points out, and he says, in this staff report, I might add, as a member of the ICMA, I am obligated to uphold the ICMA Code of Ethics, which means, under Tenet 11, handle all matters of personnel on the basis of merit, so that fairness and impartiality govern a member's decisions pertaining to appointments, pay adjustments, promotions, and discipline. The intent of Tenet 11 is to remove favoritism and political appointments. There's no political appointment here, folks, you know? And I'm getting and trying to block a favoritism thing. Now, the city manager can say whatever he wants, but we know, for those of us that know Doug, it's been his intent all along to bring the Bainbridge police chief here. And you know what? He's looking at his credentials, he's well qualified. And I don't have any issues with the Bainbridge police chief. Bring him in, but bring him in fairly and bring him in fair and consistent with the process, and don't screw over 2 other guys that went through the process and now are being DQ'd and dropped, knowing right from the gate that they weren't going to be selected anyway. This is why this ordinance was here, and this is why this ordinance was changed. You know, the council can do what it's want, but somewhere along the line, colleagues, you need to have some type of control. You cannot just give all the power away. Somewhere you have to have a rope that you can tug a little bit. And there's nothing in this ordinance that said these directors report to us. We all know they don't. And to sit here and say they do, or that we micromanage, you all know that we don't. And so all of this other stuff is BS. It's BS. You know, you can vote, you're going to vote, your conscience on how you want it, but the process is flawed. The whole process should have started over. It should have started over and had everybody apply again. Just throw it out. Doug could have said, you know what, I want to do my own process. I don't like the police flyer, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the requirements, I wanted to design it. And he said in the beginning when we interviewed him, I want to pick the police chief. And we all said, you do it, you do it. I want to be involved in the process. He wasn't, okay? He wasn't. Rochelle took that away from him, and this is the result of where we're at today. So the council's going to make a decision, but the public needs to know the system is flawed. Rochelle blew it up, and here we are going to make a decision tonight on 2 things. One that is going to give the city manager absolute control, absolute power, and the council's going to sit up here and say, okay, that's it. You know, so the four of you can do what you want. I'm going to vote no, and we keep it here. Somewhere you have to have it, Doug, and don't give it up. That's it.
That was a lot to process. Nevertheless, I still don't have an issue with the ordinance because I don't think we give him absolute power. Secondly, I went through the application and the flyer yesterday, and I read everything through, and it actually stated in there that it's open until filled. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So there was no cutoff time. And secondly, I do want you, Doug, to please respond to that, but my understanding was that, all the police prospects for police chief went through an initial interview, and then you did the final interview and the meet and greet.
So the process involved two panels, a police panel made up of 2 members from the Bainbridge Police Officers Association, the only member of the Bainbridge Police Management Association, a civilian employee from the police department, and an HR staff person. That was one panel. The second panel consisted of management team members, and also an HR person. And then I interviewed all 3 of the applicants individually. So they went through 3 different panels. After all 3 panels interviewed each of the applicants, each of the finalists, we held a debriefing session where we talked about the strengths and weaknesses of each of the candidates, and then reached consensus on the top choice. We then went to the community meet and greet where there were, I don't remember the exact number, I would guess 20 to 30 people. Community members had the opportunity to talk with all 3 of the finalists. At the beginning of that meeting, I asked the community members, after they had a chance to meet the finalists, if they felt so inclined to let me know what their thoughts were on each of the 3 finalists. Most of the community response I received was, you have a tough choice to make, or I'm sure glad I don't have to make that choice. Those that did offer provided me the names of 2 of the 3 candidates, one of which we have offered the position to. As far as the comment about the good will outweigh the bad, what was posed to me is I was going to take a lot of heat if I moved forward with the process. My comment about the good outweighing the bad was I was willing to take some heat initially because I was confident that this applicant would be able to show the community that he was qualified and would do a good job in the position. It wasn't about I felt that I was doing something wrong. I stand by the process. It's valid, and there is nothing unethical about it.
Thank you. One thing that, Daniela, it was a 2-part process. There was the first chiefs panel that Tim was on and the 2 other chiefs were on, that the Bainbridge chief did not attend. He wasn't even an applicant. The 3 finalists came from that panel. This next, at the meet and greet, was the second interview, okay? So Bainbridge only went, that was his first interview, when it was the other 2's second interview. So my point is, he missed the first part of the process. You know, who was to say that had he applied in the first part of the process, that he would have been one of the 3 finalists? See, we don't know that. But the city manager, through his power, can just insert the individual into the slot.
Yes, but again, it was open. It was open until filled. We didn't have a cutoff line.
You're missing the point. There was an oral interview, and those applicants narrowed down to 3 finalists, and the process had began. Sure, it was open until filled, but those 3 finalists should have been eliminated at his interview and said, there's not enough, I don't want any of the 3. And then the next group would have come in. You don't take someone and insert him into the final group without going through the other process and say, we're taking that one. I mean, it's going to happen anyway. Really doesn't matter. We can kick the horse to even deader than it already is. But my point is, it's not fair. You come from civil service, you know the promotion process, you know, there's a grand jury investigation going on right now with Riverside County Sheriff's Department over their promotion process. You know, this is another process, you know, to me that is flawed. It is what it is, you know? But anyway, whatever you want to do with this thing, Art.
Okay. Well,
I'm seeing that we're discussing 2 different issues right here. The ordinance is, in regards to granting, that we're about to vote on is whether or not to grant
Grant him the power back.
the power back to
Right.
basically,
Or do we keep it, and say, whoever it is you bring in, you know, we need to agree with you. We need to agree with you. We're not his boss. We're just agreeing with you. This is a great pick. And nobody's criticizing his pick when it comes to the second process. I'm only criticizing the process. But if you take this away, if you take this segment away that we changed in 2014, then you have no power at all to say, he comes in here and he says, I'm hiring this one, you got no, I'm hiring this one at this money and this benefits and this, and you got no say. That's it, you got no say. You're done.
I disagree with that.
okay, well, again, I'm seeing 2 different issues here. We're not debating the hiring process. I mean, it's worthy of debate, but this question is about the ordinance.
This is, ask the clerk to read the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 1540, modifying the city manager's powers and duties in respect to the appointment, promotion, demotion, and removal of officers and employees.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I move to waive further readings in ordinance 1540.
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
I'm-
All in,
Aye.
All those in favor?
aye.
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 This is to waive the reading, so, no?
Okay.
I move that ordinance number 1540 pass its first reading.
Second.
Please vote.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you.